I recently just finished watching the original Macross, and you know what? It was pretty good. I've been wanting to watch it after coming to understand how important it is for the history of anime as a medium, so I figured why not now? It's a very innovative series for the time and popularized a lot of concepts, but this is not really an area of expertise for me, so if you want specifics on the time frame and history, I'm sure there are other great video essays out there. There are, however, some interesting things I do want to talk about with the show. Like other war series, there's a big focus on the tension between the government, the citizens, and the military. Each faction has their own concerns, and the things that would aid one side may be harmful to the other. When the story is kickstarted by an alien invasion seeking to obtain the wrecked and rebuilt Macross, it jumpstarts a massive war between these aliens, the Zentradi, and Earth. Macross warps away, unknowingly taking along an entire island of people as well. This is one of the more interesting parts of the series. This faction of the military is not only responsible for their own safety in protecting the Earth, but also has to balance it with the lives of innocent civilians on board as well. This gives a lot more weight to the decisions made by each faction of Earth. Whereas it would normally be pretty easy to write off the danger the military faces as something that they pretty much signed up for, it's harder to justify when you're risking tens of thousands of civilians in each battle as well, unwilling combatants basically. The Zentradi are also interesting, as we learn in the later stretch of the series that this race of giants is descended from people identical to Earth. They refer to Earthlings as proto-culture and have no culture of their own, having been created by proto-culture for war and then turning and destroying the proto-culture at some point. The Zentradi basically only exist for war still, locked in endless battle with the Supervision Army who we do not see. The Zentradi seem to not reproduce normally and have no contact between men and women mostly. They mostly serve as an intelligent enemy force that antagonizes Earth. Possessing a far superior force, the only way Earth survives to some degree is by turncoding many of the Zentradi in the final stretch of the war. Upon being exposed to culture, largely through the singing of idol Lin Minmay, they learn that there is more to life than fighting and many side with the Macross not wanting to see this idol killed and her songs vanish. The war concludes with the main Zentradi force clashing with Earth and almost everyone on Earth is killed, but at the same time the Macross takes out the Zentradi force. The turn-coded Zentradi and Macross civilians then go on to rebuild Earth in the wake of this battle. Another interesting thing about this series is that this is not where it ends, rather, for another 10-ish episodes or so, we see Earth being rebuilt and the struggles that come with that. The largest issue is mainly that many of the Zentradi cannot get used to life on Earth and instead wish to still be fighting a war, unhappy with their menial lives of honest labor. They want to destroy and build a resistance force with one of the antagonists, which takes up the bulk of the last stretch's conflict. While it was neat to see them actually rebuilding and the issues that arose, I thought that this section of the series kind of mixed its messages a bit. The Zentradi were created with large bodies and socialized for war, but aside from that, it's not really implied that they are more genetically predisposed for it than humans. The messaging here, as some characters point out, is that just like humans, they seek out war and destruction, sharing this core fault of humanity. From here, the theming is that through the process of learning more about the humanity of their enemies and broadening their horizons on culture, learning that there is more to life than just war, they begin to assimilate and make peace with humanity. The weird bit is that even after this war has happened, a large chunk of Zentradi are still seeking out war for no purpose other than war itself. We've already covered the idea that humanity and Zentradi are inherently tied with war, so going to this degree feels a little bit excessive. What does it say about the Zentradi that they seek it despite learning more of the world? Is this just the idea that humanity can't escape its violent tendencies? I think that's a fine take, but then it's a bit weird that only the Zentradi feel the need to go back to war, isn't it? Surely some of the military who live very similar lives to the Zentradi should feel similarly, yet no such thing happens. Is this maybe bringing up the idea that it's harder than you think to overcome decades of socialization? Sure, but it doesn't quite feel like a result of those actions and is more portrayed as an inherent part of their biology. Some Zentradi just feel differently and can't live normal lives. This is why I think the messaging is mixed, as at this point it feels harder to separate the sci-fi concepts that are built to serve as metaphors for the human condition from just the sci-fi concepts having a life of their own and ruining some of the meaning. Upon defeating the Zentradi resistance, humanity is left with how to prepare themselves for the rest of the development. More Zentradi forces that far outnumber them and the Supervision Army still exist out in the cosmos somewhere, but as the protoculture has shown them through history, any attempts to bolster their military might to a point that would combat them would simply turn back on them. They'd lose what makes them human in the process and destroy themselves or lose their culture entirely. Therefore, Captain Global makes the decision to, instead of bolstering the army, expand society throughout the galaxy and spread to other planets. Let Earth's culture live on in many other societies, regardless of how many fall to war like Earth did. It's a thematically strong note to end on, that rather than matching the ever-mounting stakes of violence that continues, we should build ourselves up and seek out our shared humanity. I like it a lot. A lot of the runtime of the show is also dedicated to a love triangle between the main character Hikaru Ichijo, the idol Lin Minmay, and his superior Misa Hayase. The romance between Minmay and Hikaru is immediate, as a somewhat cliche boy saves girl and they bond kind of thing. Hikaru struggles with it a lot because, despite her obvious romantic signals at times, Minmay doesn't really return Hikaru's feelings or feel particularly romantic about him until the end of the series. She's just so wrapped up in her own head and about her budding career as an idol that it kind of just brushes past her, mostly just seeing him as a friend. Despite the part where they had like a fake wedding ceremony when they both thought they were left for dead. You know, those things just happen, I guess. Hikaru's romance with Hayase is much more of a slow burn as they have immediately contrasting personalities. Hikaru is your cocky yet incredibly skilled up-and-comer, while Hayase is the strict and formal authority figure, so they mix like oil and water. Hayase is hung up for quite a while on her former lover who died serving in the military, while Hikaru is still chasing after Minmay. Eventually they meet somewhere in the middle as they realize their contrasting personalities largely come from the same place and start to get along well. They even get their own dramatic moments of near-death and bond over it. She realizes her feelings far sooner than Hikaru does though, leading to a ton of really frustrating moments. Similarly to how Minmay doesn't see Hikaru romantically early on, Hikaru doesn't get that Hayase is into him despite her staying over at his place and cooking for him all the time. She gets visibly jealous of Minmay and tells him to replace his photo album of the two of them with pictures of her instead, and dude is just like, man, she's a really good friend. Bro is not very smart. I was absolutely tearing my hair out in the last few episodes when he schedules what is essentially a date with Hayase, which he doesn't see as a date for some reason, and then is approached by Minmay for what is more clearly also a date now that she's realized her feelings for him. He calls for Hayase, but can't get a hold of her, so what does Hikaru do? He ditches her for Minmay, figuring that she'll just understand, as if priority somehow goes to the person who asked last. You already had plans, man, what is wrong with you? Why would you just drop that at random? There's a good chunk of frustrating love triangle stuff like that, but Minmay realizes he cares for Hayase more than he cares for her and goes off on her own, leaving Hikaru and Hayase to get together. Her last song sums up nicely how she wrote off his feelings and took his kindness for granted, realizing too late that Hikaru was really the only one who earnestly cared for her, whereas Hayase was there and was by his side for a long time. Instead, Minmay goes off to cultivate the inner strength she lacks that those two so clearly have, as they fight for a purpose and she has lost hers. It's a nice yet bittersweet ending, but I was happy to see Hayase happy. She's so sweet to him and the two work very well together, so I couldn't imagine her being left out. Overall, if you have a tolerance for a slightly slow start and some love triangle shenanigans that can be rather frustrating, it's a good watch. I would rate it somewhere in the wheelhouse of like 7 out of 10, and there's a lot to like about it despite my confusion on some of the messaging. If you have any thoughts about any of those points, leave your comments below, I would love to hear them. Perhaps I will watch more of the series now that I've got my foot in the door, but for now, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.